Alvaro, hello. Nice to have you at GuitarCoop, and thanks for talking to us. Can you explain a little bit more about your early influences, your years in Uruguay, the influence of ALvaro in your upbringing and everything in those early years?
That's very nice of you to tell me this and to ask me this. Well, I'm very happy to be here and talking with you about these things that normally they come too fast in the things. No? I mean, I think that ALvaro and me and Santorsola and my aunt and everybody in the guitar world had a very strong influence from Andrés Segovia. Andrés Segovia that was living in Uruguay 9 years in the time of the Spanish War. And he got married even there. His second marriage was there with Paquita Madriguera. He had 2 girls there. And it was a time in Uruguay where the economic situation and the cultural movement was very, very strong. And Segovia was, I think, choosing very well where to spend this time out of Europe. And of course, in the place itself, it had an enormous influence. But in any case, in the whole guitar world, I remember myself when I was a kid, I was putting the records of Segovia and trying to figure out how he was doing the sound. Because above everything he was doing, the sound was very particular. And he was like, let's say, putting references for the whole world, not only with new pieces and not only with, let's say, trying to follow his Spanish avenue in the aesthetics, but on the sound. Because it was a new instrument, in fact. Because, I mean, if we think that he was taking the guitars, let's say that Torres was really putting in the world, and Liobet and other people at this time, beginning of the 20th century, and after the enormous relation he had with Hauser, that was always in the same sense, to look for a sound. People think that it was only the story of putting a sound that was loud enough to a big hall. Yes, of course. But a loud sound is not only loud, it needs to be rich. The formantic of the sound needs to be full of things. And like Friedrich had said, and other very good guitar makers, the concentration of the sound, of the harmonics, this makes the instrument too rich, and it's not only if it is just this acoustic pressure. Yeah? So, to come back to your question, it was very interesting to me to observe how people were using the instrument. And ALvaro, he was for a while a student of Segovia when Segovia was living in Montevideo. My aunt was not studying with Segovia, but she was admiring him a lot. And she didn't study with him because my grandfather was forbidding her to meet Segovia because he was afraid, because, he was very, let's say, Casanova. So my grandfather was taking care of this. But it was very interesting how every person there and every person around the world were understanding, in a way or in another, this making of the sound. And ALvaro also, he has his own way. And ALvaro also, when I was studying with him, we had a very nice time because he was very respectful of the personality of the guys that were working with him. So it was very interesting for me to find out that he was not so strict as everybody was saying.
Alvaro, this is very interesting. A lot of people think, wrongly in my view, but it's interesting to hear from you, that ALvaro used to impose his way on the students, the sound, the technique, everything. And how was that?
Well, in my case, I cannot say this because from the very beginning, I mean, we knew each other. He was hearing me in concerts and in competitions. He was in the jury, etc., etc. Many times before I decided to ask him to have lessons with him, because I was studying with my aunt, and despite of the fact that they were making duos and trios when they were young, something happened one day, and then they became a little bit not enemies, but more or less. And it was very particular for me to ask my aunt to continue studying with her. And please, I want to study also with ALvaro because I want to know what he has to teach me. Because for sure he has a lot of things to teach. And he was not imposing. He was very much a very good seller. He was very good selling his stuff, his ideas, his ways of thinking, etc. But he was very clever in the sense of realizing that the person he had in front, it was also somebody that is thinking. And I saw it also with other people. He was very respectful with everybody. But of course, he was selling his things. I mean, he was explaining and being very, his convictions were very interesting. And he had a kind of thing also with Segovia in the sense that, well, probably he would have expected, in my opinion, what I could imagine, that Segovia was about to give him more help or more importance, or in the sense of the marketing, or in the sense of, I don't know, something like this. But at the same time, getting to know ALvaro, by one side, he was a very courageous person, always looking for new things and trying to understand the logics of the things. You know, he was an engineer himself. So this was conditioning a lot.
But it was very logical.
Very logical. And he was always talking about René Descartes and the discours de la méthode. No? Mm-hmm. And we were talking, and I was reading this book. And of course, the methodic doubt. You see, that's me. I apply it a lot in the sense of, okay, this is good. Could this be better? Oh, no, it's better. Can that even better be? So this is a major point in the whole story, because every time that we were working on a piece, we were both in the same, because I was also like this.